And let's see. So it says today. I believe this is the wrong. No, it isn't. Haha. What's a PDR? So what is a PDR? It's a physician's desk reference. And or what we joke in the medical field when we say it's the doctor's Bible, because it basically has every type of drug and its side effects, its indications, its dosing, everything like that. And why is it helpful for an MA? Well, it's helpful for an MA because there are many, none of us are going to be able to remember every kind of drug there is. And I know that they put them out annually. That's sometimes a question that you might see on your national registry test. And it says, you know, how often are they done? They're annually. And now what's really awesome is that they are available online. So you're able to just type in the drug, go to the PDR, I think it's .org or .com. I don't know which one it is. I'll send y'all the link and you can find it. But there's so many wonderful sites like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be providing multiple links and sites that you can use during this mod to help you with drugs. I have our project, since y'all are on, y'all get to know before everybody else the perks of being here, right? We will be doing basically a project that involves about 30 categories of drugs. And right now, I might be able to tell you, you know, an anti-inflammatory. And you could probably name an anti-inflammatory. Could anybody name one? Maybe, maybe not. You will be able to. What about an antidepressant? Can anybody name one of those? No, not yet? You will. So, but there's going to be a bunch of different classifications like that. So, and you'll have to list. So say it is a antipyretic, and that basically, that class of drugs reduces fever. So you'll take a note card, a PowerPoint. I've had people make actual like books, flip books. I've seen some really amazing projects. And you'll list two antipyretics. So if I could think of the two most common, if you have kids, you know of Tylenol and ibuprofen, right? Well, Tylenol is has another name, and a lot of times people aren't familiar. Tylenol is the brand name. It's the name that's famous for, right? But the actual drug is called acetaminophen. Just like ibuprofen is the drug's name, but it has many brand names like Motrin, Aleve. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but of course there's tons of them. They've all slipped from my brain. So those two are both antipyretics. They both will reduce fever. Do they do other things? Yes, they actually are drugs that fall into many categories. They also are analgesics. And an analgesic is a type of drug that relieves pain. They are both also, here's a good example. What one of them is and one of them's not. Ibuprofen is an NSAID, and NSAID means non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. So ibuprofen relieves swelling, but Tylenol does not. So there are certain effects and benefits between them. This is what we're going to be doing, guys. So like I said, hang on to your socks. You're going to need a ton of, if you want to do note cards, you're going to need a bunch of note cards and highlighters and all those kind of good things. And if you are somebody that wants to do a PowerPoint, that's fine too. And I'm going to be providing lots of different ways for you to obtain the information for all of these. And with lecture, which we're fixing to start here, you'll be able to. Anybody have any questions before we get started?
No.
No, ma'am.
Why is my sharing paused? Let's see. That's odd. Oh, that's why. Ta-da! All right, can you see my pharmacology?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
and here we go. We're going to rock and roll. So pharmacology, the definition, what is it? So this is one of your definitions, and eventually I'll assign you, and if I haven't already, I don't remember. I've got several classes now. In the back of the chapter for pharmacology in your textbook, I'll assign you 1 through whatever, comprehension, review, and certification exam. Those are common that I usually always give out. And pharmacology is one of those terms to learn, right? And what is it? Well, basically, it's the study of drugs, the study of how they form, their intention, the uses, and the effects. Okay? So that is a definition that you definitely need to know. And here's something else, and this is also one of your Survey Monkey questions. I believe I went with it. Where do drugs come from? Well, drugs actually originated and started, thousands of years ago by plants. People saw the benefits of certain roots, leaves, seeds, flowers, and they were bark, and they started using them for medicinal reasons. We also receive a lot of our medications and certain things that you'd be so surprised from animals. I think now most thyroid medications are synthetic, or what synthetic is man-made, right, or artificially created. But in the old, my mom used to be on a thyroid medication, and it was something, and don't get me to lie, but I'm wanting to say it was something dealing with horse urine. I'm not even joking. So it's like some crazy stuff. So there's different things, or it's something with horses, but there's different things that we're able to use and make. I'll give you a wonderful example. In Australia, they are using bee venom to treat stage 4 breast cancer and cure it. Stage 4 breast cancer is not something that can be cured. So the fact, or there's like a 1%. And the fact that they're doing that is like mind-blowing. So we get our drugs and our medications from so many sources. And nowadays, a lot of them are artificial, or what we call synthetic, meaning that they are made in a laboratory. That doesn't necessarily mean that they still don't have some kind of plant or animal type of sourcing, but they're put together by man, okay? And the majority of it is synthetic or processed. We do, however, and this is something I'm going to make sure, and I want everybody to be aware of, is that vitamins, minerals, supplements are just as important for us to know about as all the other medications. Because if our patient is on vitamins or certain minerals or supplements, and we don't list them, and the doctor prescribes something, it could have a very adverse reaction. I'm going to give you an example. Any of y'all ever heard of St. John's wort? Well,
No, I haven't.
it's a it comes in different forms, and one of them's liquid tablet, and it's from a flower, and they used it for moods for centuries, and it boosts serotonin levels, which make us happier. But if somebody's already taking that and a doctor prescribes them an antidepressant, especially like a SSRI type, like Prozac, it can actually, they'll cause that Prozac to work even higher than what normal, it can cause states of mania. So we can see right there, it's really important that we list vitamins and minerals and supplements that our patients are on. And all morning I've had kind of raspiness, so you'll have to try to bear with me here. And this is what, these are some examples here, natural from a plant. We have, the one that I always use is, remember in The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy and the Scarecrow and them went through the poppy field with the red flowers and they fell asleep? Well, the reason that they fell asleep is because poppies are where we get opium. And opium is how we make all of our the word has completely slipped my mind, but like our Vicodin, our Norco, our oxycodone, all of our strong pain relieving drugs that are opioids and based. And that's because they come from the poppy. Okay. And so that's a, you know, that's one that's like, wow, I never knew that. And unfortunately, we'll get into this. Is another one that we're seeing, is this is one of the reasons why controlled substances and certain things are regulated and monitored very heavily. Another really cool one is digitalis, and I am going to post the plant for you that it comes from, because it's the most beautiful purple flower you've ever seen. But digitalis comes from what's called the foxglove, and it's deadly. Even touching it, it can affect your heart and cause you to have heart issues, like serious ones. And ingesting it can even kill you. And but what they found is if they use it in certain ways, it can actually treat heart arrhythmias. So it's really cool. Okay, and it's synthetic, you know, chemical based, something that's engineered. And then biologics. Biologics is kind of a brand new field that we're going into, and it's where we're taking parts of ourself, and the doctors and the scientists and the pharmacologists are working with our own genes, are working with our own cells, and they are programming them and putting them back in to us to destroy cancer or stimulate this or control that. All kinds of amazing things. So this is like the new age area we've gone into. I'm getting raspy again. One of the, and something I'm sure everyone's familiar with, is penicillin. And penicillin, we treat it, it's an antibiotic. We use it for pneumonia, we use it for STDs, all kinds of things. So one of the things that's kind of funny about penicillin is the person who discovered it actually had cheese growing in their, well, had a block of cheese in their lab and it grew mold on it. And long story short, he discovered that, hey, that mold's beneficial. Bam, you got a life-saving antibiotic that's been used for hundreds of years. So it's still, I mean, it's something. Do they still, you know, probably mold cheese and get it that way? No, things are processed now because the vast majority of our drugs nowadays are synthetic. and created by artificial means. But most of their origins you can find started in plant or animal. Okay? Now, why do we give a drug? We give a drug for multiple reasons. To improve a condition. So if you have an infection and say pneumonia or bronchitis, we give that drug that antibiotic to improve it and make it better. We give a drug to eradicate a condition. Polio. We don't have polio anymore because the polio vaccine was sent worldwide and they were able to completely get rid of polio. And then we also give medications to prevent. And that would be like, a good example would be a cholesterol drug. And those are called statins. And what good example of that is, you go in, you have your yearly blood work, your cholesterol's high, and the doctor says, let's prevent you from having a heart attack or getting your cholesterol worse. So let's put you on this cholesterol drug. So a prevention. Okay? Any questions so far? No. Okay. There is a very long process. Right now, we are seeing this with our COVID vaccine. So in January, March, people started looking at this. This is the step they were at. And then by May, most places were here. In July or so, this is where a lot of places were on this process, where they go to the suggesting the new drug, it's submitted, and then now we're in what's called clinical trials. So we have a big problem. You see that the next step is new drug application is submitted to the Food and Drug Administration, and they either, from there, the application is reviewed. It's required that they go through multiple testings, they prove, and they're able to answer. It's basically like a committee, and they have to answer all of these questions, prove all of their data, show all of their patients from these clinical trials, and prove to them that this is a safe drug. We've got a little bit of an issue. Right now, they're wanting, the people in charge of the government right now are wanting to take all of our phase 3s and automatically just start giving them to people and skip these steps. And that's dangerous. And it's something that could end up costing lives instead of saving lives. There's a reason that we have these processes, and it's because we need to see, and think about how many drugs that you've seen recalled. Even though they went through every single one of these steps, several years later, they found out, oh, that's not so good. One of them I can think of is a drug called Darvocet. I took it. It was wonderful for pain. But years ago, they were like, oh no, everybody should stop taking Darvocet and we're not going to make it anymore. It can cause all kinds of cardiovascular issues. What? So even then, there's still things that can be recalled. But these processes are vital for our safety and our patient safety and everyone. And not just the United States does this, the entire world does this. And they may not have something called the FDA, maybe it's abbreviated with other names, but every country has this process, and it's not something that you break. You don't break this cycle. So yeah, we have to be careful. when we start thinking about that process, drugs will, say drug X will begin with 3 different names. And this is where things get kind of confusing, but don't let it, okay? The generic name is the name that will be its official name of the drug, okay? And hang on to that information because I'm going to come back to it. This is adopted by the council and it's approved by the FDA. So the generic name comes from the FDA. Its chemical name, like hydrochloroquine, blah, 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 whatever. That's basically the chemical name. And the only people that need to know this are pharmacologists, all right, or research or people like that. So we're good. We don't need to know this. Now, here's where things come weird. The trade name. So the trade name is the name given by the manufacturer of the drug. And we're gonna talk about that. So if I said acetaminophen, that's its generic name. I don't know its chemical name, it's blah, 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 but its trade name is Tylenol. Okay, y'all with me so far?
Yes, yes.
Cool, 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 cool. All right. Now, its generic name, sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the official or non-proprietary. That means non-profit, right? Generics names are usually always written in lowercase, and it is the legal name of the drug. So if I said fluoxetine, that is the legal official name for Prozac, okay? And the FDA has the say in that. The FDA has the say in how this drug is made, the quality, the strength, the purity, everything, okay? And this is important to remember because I'm going to explain to you why. With brand names are typically written capitalized, and they are called, this is a very key term you want to know, they are called proprietary. So that means, it basically means profit, okay? And this is the name that's given to the drug by the manufacturer. Now let me go through and I'm going to walk you through an example because knowing this is very important. So when I say I am a chemist and I'm working for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, and I've been working on this compound and I discover, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This drug absolutely cures herpes, genital herpes. So I take it to my boss, and then my boss is like, hey, awesome. And so then they take it to the next step, and then to the next step, and to, down the line. Then finally it gets to the FDA. And the FDA says, wow, your clinical trials look amazing. It really does. Very little side effects. It cures genital herpes. This is amazing. This is one of the best antivirals we've ever seen, right? So they're going to give it its generic name. They're going to call it, let's make something silly, herpes be gone, right? Or, so that's its generic name. And that's what it will be known as. Now it has a chemical name, all of its little chemicals. Now let's talk about its brand or its proprietary. That company, Pfizer, remember Pfizer? They have a very special ability because they discovered it and they created it right here. They get to own the patent for 20 years, meaning that when they name their drug Herpix, and you see commercial after commercial of Herpix, I had herpes and blah, 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 and now my life is whatever. Now Herpix, right? And your doctor writes for Herpix. That is their name. That is their brand name, their proprietary name. Now, how many other drug companies like Eli Lilly and Moderna and all them are going, ooh, 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 I want to make Herpix and make money too? They can't. They can't for 20 years. So Pfizer owns this chemical for 20 years. So after that, then it becomes non-proprietary, and then everyone can make it. And it still has to have the herpes be gone, its generic name, but then all the other companies can name it whatever. Instead of herpes, they might need, herpafin or something like that. But they can't name it the same name as what the proprietary name did. It can't be close to it. Now, a lot of companies really push the line there and try to make it very similar, but there's really no need. And here's the reason I'm going to explain that. Do you remember when I said back here that the FDA regulates the effectiveness, the safety, the ingredients, quality, strength, and purity and stability of generics? So what that basically all means is generic drugs are equal to a brand name drug. There are no differences. The only difference, so all these other companies can make this drug, but they have to change one non-major ingredient, like the color of it, the flavor of it. They have to add some type of ingredient that changes it one way, but doesn't affect or change the drug. Did I lose anybody?
No, I have a question.
No.
Yes. Go
So
ahead.
sometimes when you get like a prescription from a doctor
Uh-huh.
and they check off the little box that says like if
Allow
it can,
substitutions.
yeah.
Hmm?
So how does that work? Is it it's still the same medication, but
It
is
is.
it just like the
It,
brand name?
yep. It is the exact. If the doctor checks allow substitutions, that means that he's allowing you or the pharmacist are giving y'all the option to go generic. When you go generic, you're going to save money and you're going to benefit the exact same as you would with the brand. Now, here's the problem. Go back and think about your grandma or your great grandma. Their generation, when all of this was really getting big and going, probably y'all's great grandma, but my grandma, she was set. She was convinced that because for 20 years, when most of the drugs that were coming out, that's the only name she knew. So when they started coming out with generics, she found it fishy, shady, and so she was real suspicious. And she's like, I don't think they work the same. And some people in their mind, they'll be like, oh, it's not the same. But technically, it is chemically the exact same drug. But you still have people who swear to God that they can only take the brand name, all right, or something like that. So that benefits the proprietor, and that allows them to continue to charge more for their drug. I'm going to say this now, and I will try not to harp on it, and I will try not to, what do you call, drive y'all nuts with it, but one of the most corrupt, greediest, disgusting things we have in our society is the pharmaceutical companies. Their wealth surpasses anything that we can fathom. And there are people who are dying because they're not getting insulin that they need because drug companies are charging. I have a real moral issue with pharmaceutical companies because most of them are all about profit and screw the patient. And so that's the last I'll say of that. But just remember, when it comes down to it, they are not going to, if some scientist somewhere finds a cure for something that pharmaceutical company's been making billions off of every year, do you think that cure's coming out?
No.
Nope. You can best believe it ain't. Not when they can still treat you. Not when they can still give you the drugs, make you better. It's just not going to happen. So, and there have been, there's a lot of movies and books and stories and true life things about that. If you're curious, you can look into it. A couple of them are fascinating.
I watched the documentary on thalidomide before that was causing birth defects, like in pregnant women. They were taking them for like morning sickness and so forth.
Yep.
And it almost made it to the United States, but I guess the FDA, when they submitted the application and so forth, was like, wait, there's something wrong with this.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
We have that too. You know, and the like I don't mind mentioning, I don't mind telling you this. I am in a lawsuit with Purdue, and it's an opioid lawsuit because 16 years ago I'm still a recovering addict. I was addicted to opioids because I had two things happen. I was thrown out of the back of a moving ambulance by a patient, and then I was in a car wreck. And so between all of that, I had multiple herniations along my lower back and in my neck. I still have all of them in my neck, and I've had surgery on my back. But afterwards, I was in pain. And so what do? They send you to a pain doctor. Well, my pain doctor was a very bad person, and all he wanted was my fabulous insurance that I had at the time. So he got me hooked over a year, basically on the equivalent of heroin. So I was on oxycodone, Oxydin, Percocet, Norco, Soma, just everything. And here's the thing. At that time, the company who made Oxycontin, it was Purdue, they knew it was addictive. They knew how dangerous it was. They knew, and they continued to make the drug. And many people lost their life. Many family members lost family members, and many people ruined their existence because of this drug, because of what the effects that it had. And I became a different person. I was not me. And fortunately, I found out I was pregnant with my baby, and I cold turkeyed, and that's a story for another time, but I've been clean since then. And it's one of them things that's actually, you don't ever think of prescription drugs as somebody, as an addict. Oh yeah, it's the number one thing people are addicted to now. It's not Coke, it's not meth, it's prescription drugs, guys. It's a big problem. We'll talk about that when we get to substance abuse.
Yeah. It's easier to get your hands on it.
Absolutely, absolutely it is. And oops. But one of the things, y'all can still see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that you want to make sure is that when you do go to the doctor, say you are in an accident and they give you medicine, take it like it's prescribed. And no, nowadays there are rules that are set in. This was 16 years ago for me. Nowadays, this is why, unfortunately, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's good because less people are getting addicted to them. It's bad because, like my husband here had a kidney stone a few years ago that was blocking his ureter. And kidney stones are that pain scale 1 to 10, they're a 10. And they didn't want to give him pain medicine because of the opioid and the drug addiction issue. So we're seeing that. I thought Texas was bad. Whoa, Florida is nuts. You can't even get, I have multiple sclerosis. I have massive physical body problems that cause me pain on a daily basis. I don't take these, but the first thing anytime I go into any place here in Florida is is they're like, we don't prescribe opioids. And I was like, okay. So they really crack down, but we'll talk, like I said, we'll talk more about that during when we talk substance abuse. All right. Things that you need to remember with that whole proprietary brand name is that company who first discovered that a herpes be gone, they can charge as much for that drug as they want. So if you had genital herpes and you wanted it gone and there was a pill, you'd probably go and pay $1,200 for a pill each month, right? Herpes is not a fun thing. So that's where the big problem is. Now, all of the other companies already have their generics made and they have it ready to go. All they're waiting for is how long? 20 years. 20 years, and then they can start producing their drug. Okay? Now, this is a term I want you to write down and understand. And when I say that they're equal, that they're the exact same, that term, oops, we got another visitor. Let's see who wants to join. Okay. That means that, that means they are bioequivalent. That's the term. That means like if you took it down to its chemical agents, they are the exact same, besides, like I said, the flavoring or the color or something. The ingredients and the generic and brand names have to be, by the FDA, bioequivalent. Okay? So this is definitely a term you need to know. Non-active, that's like I was telling you, a dye to change the color or a flavoring, okay? That's what they have to add, is something different. Some people will put like when I tell you, like a granule of sugar, they'll add like a granule of sugar or something that won't change the drug, but yet it's still different because it has that one sugar chemical. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So the chemical name, like I said, we're not even going to sweat that, because you know who needs to know that? Pharmacist. Thank God, not us. So you see, I just skipped over that, because most of them you can't even say. And when you see their chemical names, it's like, what? And this is a little picture, and it's kind of letting you see brand names versus generic. Same, right? Costly, inexpensive. Exactly the same. The only thing is maybe the color or the taste or the flavor or something like that. Okay? Here's a good example. Acetaminophen. Now, I mentioned this one. This is its generic. It's brand name. Everybody's familiar with Tylenol. But how many of y'all, and be honest, it's okay because most people don't. How many of y'all knew that Tylenol was acetaminophen? Anybody?
I did. It's on my daughter's medicine.
Yep, that's right. And if you got parents, you usually, these are two that you get familiar with real quick, right? But nobody but the pharmacist knew that it was N4-hydrophenylacimide, right? So that's why I say don't worry about the chemical name, guys. But I really, really want y'all to start getting familiar. And I'm going to be throwing drugs at y'all. And I want you to know, be able to match generic with brand, generic with brand, okay? And I have Quizlets, I have Kahoots, I have worksheets, I've got study guides, I have everything that you could possibly need to help you and aid you with this, okay? Because this can be, for somebody who's brand new, who's not familiar with all this, this can seem like overwhelming. But don't worry, I've got enough, I have gotten, what did we figure? I'm up to, you know how long mods are, right? They're like 7-8 months, right? I'm up to 38 graduating classes. So through all my, and I've gotten all of them through Pharmacology, and I promise I'll get y'all too. Now, who is this? We were talking about these people, the FDA, that make all of these rules and that are governing everything. They're the Food and Drug Administration. This is a term you need to know. You need to know this abbreviation because they are part of the government, and but yet they have their own. They have their own set of legal rules that it say, like, oh, perfect example. You know how I was telling you right now that they're wanting to push the vaccine and skip those two phases? The FDA has their own rules where they can say, no, I don't think so, and force that to be done. So yes, they're part of the government, but they do in some ways have a little more pull and control because that's what they're supposed to be able to do, so that nobody can manipulate and take advantage of the system. And in a perfect world, pharmaceutical companies and governments and people don't bribe off and pay the FDA to, here, I'm going to slide you some money past my drug. That's what happens in a perfect world. Do we live in a perfect world? No. So a lot of times things like that do happen, okay? And that's just part of life. But I would say for the most part, the FDA is, out of all of anything associated with the government, it's one of your most reliable sources for giving you straight up honesty and truth compared to all of the other governmental agencies. And they are, like it says, honest, accurate information. And for the most part, I've met several people that's worked for the FDA, and most of them were truly people that cared about what they did. When you work in a doctor's office long enough, you will be visited by the FDA, and you'll also be visited by the DEA. And the FDA is just kind of like, hey, they come in, how you doing? How you doing? The DEA comes in and everybody poops their pants. And we'll explain why in a few. This is that history stuff that they want you to remember. So jot it down somewhere and try to keep it in your brain. And I still never can remember. But in 1938, we had what's called the Federal Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act passed. And the reason that we passed that is because before 1938, anybody anywhere could brew up a batch of something in their kitchen, in their backyard, in a vat of something, and sell it and say, this is going to cure your blankety blank or whatever, and sell it. And have y'all ever heard of that old, it's an old expression called a snake's, what is it? Snake oil? Yeah, salesman. And basically, they would be people that traveled from city to city back in the old days, and they would have, sometimes it was just water and herbs, you know, like that weren't actually doing anything. And they're like, this is a cure-all. And they would be great, and they would, you know, solicit, and everybody would believe it, hand over their money, and not really get a product that worked. So that's when in 1938, the FDA stepped up and said, no more. We're going to check everything and make sure it is what you're saying it is. And not just with your drugs, not just with your food, but also with cosmetics and stuff like that. Okay? If you ever, if you like to read, one of the books that I recommend is a book called The Jungle. It's by Upton Sinclair. And it talks about how the FDA changed our meat and our food industry. And all I can say is when you read the book, you'll be saying, thank you, FDA, thank you, FDA, because before then, say you're working at a factory and somebody's arm gets cut off and it goes in the ground beef, you were having Bob for dinner, literally. Rat fell in, whatever. I'm serious. The book will make you appreciate the FDA. Now, this is the next part, and I know everybody can still see my screen and it says the schedules, right? So these,
Yes.
Okay, this is something that I'm gonna want y'all, and we're gonna do little temporary tattoos, and we're gonna tattoo this to us, okay? So we're gonna learn this and memorize it. These are our schedules. So why this is so important is because we have an agency. They are their own agency, and they are called the Drug Enforcement Agency, or abbreviated DEA. And when, if you work for a doctor that prescribes pain medicines or controlled substances, that would be this schedule. The DEA pops in and visits you quite often to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because many doctors aren't like my doctor who gave me all the drugs back then. And by the way, he's in jail. The FDA and the DEA cracked down him and his wife. They're still in prison. So let's talk about schedules. Schedule 1 means that there is no medical use for this drug, and it is highly addictive. I'm going to give you an example. Crack, heroin, okay? These are drugs that when you use, there are no medicinal benefits. It is not going to help you in any way. Okay, now I will tell you, marijuana on some states is still here, but on many states nowadays, it's right here. Okay, because people have woken up and kind of seen that there is massive medicinal uses for it. Here's another one. Cocaine. Cocaine used to be here, but cocaine is actually still used in a lot of cosmetic procedures around real fine vessels and stuff, because if they put the cocaine powder on something, it'll instantly vasoconstrict the vessel and stop bleeding. So cocaine has medical uses. LSD was here. But now they're starting to use LSD for people with severe PTSD and depression. Same thing with mushrooms. So we're starting to see that a lot of the ones that are up in here, if used properly and therapeutically, possibly might have some advantages. But there are still a ton up here that absolutely never are going to have any kind of advantages or good uses, right? So let's talk about Schedule 2. Oh, let me mention Schedule 1, you get caught with a Schedule 1, you're going to jail. If you get caught with a lot of Schedule 1, you're going bye-bye. You're getting what that old term, they're sending you up the river. See you in about 20. Okay? So Schedule 2 drugs, right next to this, write controlled substance. Okay? A Schedule 2 drug is beneficial for your health, but it also is highly, highly, highly addictive. A perfect I made you one. It's in the refrigerator. Sorry. A perfect example of this is morphine. Morphine is a drug that they give you if you break your femur and it's the bone sticking out of you, right? So you're in a lot of pain. And morphine can make it all go away. And morphine actually comes from opioids, the poppy. So you see here, it's a Schedule 2. Do they use it very carefully? And because it is, all of these drugs in this category are highly addictive. Schedule 3s are drugs that also are they're medical use, and there's a medium amount of addiction associated. And then 4, it's even lower. 5, it's even lower. And then this right here basically means you just have to have a prescription. You can't just go grab it off the shelf, or what's called over the counter. And that abbreviation, write it down, and you can tattoo that one on you permanently, because that's OTC, and everybody's probably heard that and familiar. This means that you can just go anywhere and pick it up and buy it. Okay? Let me see what time we're setting at. Oops, that's not giving me. Oh no, we're good. Okay. So this is what I was talking about. The ones that enforce the Schedule 2s and then crack down on anybody dealing or selling Schedule 1s. This is them. Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. Okay? Any doctor who prescribes Schedule 2s must have registered, been approved, and have a number from the DEA. And nowadays, what's really, really cool is, anybody here on a controlled substance? Like we are, we all take Adderall because, well, not all of us, but like me and my daughter and my oldest son, because of our ADHD. Adderall is a controlled substance, and it's used for ADHD, but it's a form of meth, to put it simply, because it basically acts as a speed, but somebody with ADHD, it has a reversing effect. It's really weird how it works. But in the old days, when I had to go and pick up my kid's prescription, and I was one of those parents when I was one of those kids and teenagers, I'll never have my child on one of those drugs. Those kind of parents are horrible parents. And then you have a kid with ADHD who's literally climbing up the walls and think he's Superman, like, you know, crawling across the ceiling, running their face across cakes that you made, sneaking out of the house at 5 years old, running you down, crazy stuff. Okay, crazy. So, and then when he got in school, I still didn't medicate him until he got in school. And after the first 6 weeks, and all of his teachers brought us in and set me and his father down and said, "Hi, you need to do something with your child. This child has ADHD." And we're like, "Yeah, we know, but we didn't really know if he needed." They're like, "He needs it." So we ended up putting him on it. But when we used to get them, we'd have to go in every single month. We'd have to get the prescription, and it came in 3 sets. One set stayed with one, it was called a triplicate. One was with the doctor, one went with us, and one was sent to the state. And that's how it was done for years and years and years with any Schedule IIs. But how that they started with our new technology, they actually now, the doctor can register their thumbprint, because do people have matching thumbs? Does anybody's fingerprint the same? Nope. So the doctor can take their thumbprint when they go register with the DEA, put it on there, and they actually give them a little device they can keep on their keychain. And to access and write prescriptions, they can actually put their thumbprint on it and send the controlled substance to the pharmacy. When I found out they had that, I was like, wow, because that kept me from having to go into the doctor every single month. It was amazing, right? So it's a very helpful thing. So modern technology, woohoo, it's definitely a win. But there's still a lot of rules regarding this and regarding controlled substances, even with the newer technologies and advances. The most that a doctor can call or send in to a pharmacist is 3 months. And the pharmacist will take that, they'll get it through the computer and see, oh, okay, so Angela Scalf has Adderall 10 milligrams, and here is a script for November, December, and January. So they'll put that on the file, it'll stay there. And then on November 1st, I can pick up my prescription. And then December 1st, and not a second before, I can pick up the next one. And then the same with January. And then after that, I am legally required to go back. Okay, that's how it works with controlled substances.
Miss Cow.
Yes.
So sometimes I know there are some over-the-counter medicines that I have gone to buy them like for a cold, and they'll ask me for my ID.
You want to know why?
Why?
I'm here to tell you. They were okay. So I'm a 9. I was 1920 or so in the 90s, and lots of clubbing, lots of partying, and the drug of choice was X, and ecstasy was just a major thing. And there's a couple of other drugs that if you take, I never did that. Swear to God on my life, never did. I was a paramedic at 18, 19. I knew better. But I did love to party. And I know a lot of people who did X, but one of the things that they would do is it's called making a bathtub batch. And people would go to pharmacies and grab boxes of Sudafed. There is a substance, a chemical in any type of over-the-counter that says D, Sudafed D, Zyrtec D, right? There's all kinds of different ones. And that compound is actually, when chemists can break it down and make illegal drugs with it. And so that's what was happening. So I guess maybe 10 years ago, they required, because people would literally go and buy all of this the Sudafed and the D products from one pharmacy and go to the other. So it took quite a lot. And then make a gigantic batch, and there you go, party time. But so that's why now they keep anything like that behind the counter, and you have to show your license. Now, are still people getting away with doing it and finding ways around? Yes. But has it slowed it down? Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why, is because of the chemical that they get by the chemists that are, some people are just really good. I knew somebody who was a chemist, and they were just really, really great. And he was offered a whole lot of money back in like the early 90s to start doing that. He was like, no. So it's kind of crazy, but that's why you have to show ID, so that they can keep a record. And that's the reason. I'm going to go ahead and end. I'm going to end lecture here. And we've done our Survey Monkey. We talked about that. I am going to